Divided into armed camps of nonsensical troops, everyone sure their side is correct. On the right and the left, they both will deflect the reasoning of truth and reality tropes, crushing dreams, crushing souls, crushing everyone's hopes. The divided states of America stands in the divided people of America's hands. Perhaps we'll do better than Humpty Dumpty's sad men and figure out a way to put U.S. together again. By Groove Dragon. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's primary day. And that's going to be useful for determining or getting a sense of what work will need to be done over the course of the summer to ensure that the next 4 years goes well. So far, I'm actually pretty excited about it. Thank you, Groove Dragon, for the poem. That was really cool. Let's say hi to the gang. The Letter Hack, hello. Wicked Foxy Dragon, hello. Pinker Bell, good to see you, my friend. Teddy Cool, Kristen Rose, Logan Hill, Looney Tunes 9000, Bob Carmody. My God, we have got some distinguished guests here. Lightning Rod, hello. The Anti-Corporatist, my friend. What's up, y'all, says AC. Bennett Environmental Coffee House getting doomer pilled with Jake. Yeah. That was Sandy's stream before this, and it was a good one. I really liked that guest. Lyle, I'm sorry, I can't recall his last name live, but a very interesting conversation. Go check it out if you haven't after this. Donald James X, good to see you. The whole gang. It is great to see you. Let's talk primaries. Lightning Rod, all the players in the house. Yes, indeed. Well, this is informally, but certainly on the streets, known as the Players Club. WYCD is well known as that in certain circles. In whatever circle I'm in. Let's have a gander at those primary results, he says, as though he is talking to a producer, forgetting that he's the producer. There they are. Damn it. There they are. Primary results. Yeah. Obviously, plenty still to go with reporting. It's 25% reporting right now. But you have a pretty good sense of where things stand. Joe Biden got 187, let's call it 188,000 votes, because it's closer to that. Interestingly, with 14.6% of the votes on the Democratic primary, uncommitted has 34,000 votes. Marianne Williamson only pulling in 3% of the vote. Dean Phillips getting about the same. Let's have a look at the Republican Party. Donald Trump eaten up 66% of the votes, close to 67. That's compared to Joe Biden's 80% as the incumbent for the Democrats. Donald Trump with 239,000 votes. Do the math there real quick. It's 1/3 reporting. Bear in mind, but you're looking at a significant lead for Donald Trump. It's 188,000, 239,000. Again, more reporting on the Republican votes. Understand that there's going to be 2 stacks of ballots. They're counting one and the other in some counties. So that's where we get this. But here's where it gets interesting. Nikki Haley, 100,000 votes. She's got 28% of the votes. Uncommitted, we can assume that's going to whatever Republican, about 3%. Ron DeSantis somehow sneaking 1% out of that. I don't know what's wrong with 4,150 people in Michigan. And collectively, Asa Hutchinson, Ryan Binkley, I don't even know who that is, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Chris Christie together couldn't quite make a single percentage point. So what happens when we're looking at this? Well, number one, I think uncommitted have sent a pretty strong message here. You can count me there. I was an uncommitted vote because Joe Biden, well, he is likely to get my vote in November out of practicality. I want him to sweat. I want him to see that if people vote for him, it is not because they're so thrilled with him. But let's total those up. Let's say you get the majority of the uncommitted votes to vote for Biden. Let's say Marianne Williamson drops out, as would be logical. I know she tried to earlier. I don't know if she actually did or not, but that's how unserious, personally, I feel her campaign is. Let's just assume she won't be there in November. That is Joe Biden not quite catching up to Donald Trump. Again, there's more reporting with this, but I would still say Trump's got a lead in Michigan. The question then becomes, I mean, it's neck and neck at that point. The question then becomes, what happens with Nikki Haley voters? Do Nikki Haley voters, who I cannot stress enough, represent 1/3 or close to it of the Republican vote? Do they go Trump or do they go Biden? It's going to make a massive difference. Let's hope Haley sees where the future is headed and endorses Joe Biden. But that actually would be important. Doesn't matter if you don't like her. I don't like her. But an endorsement from Nikki Haley would be huge for Joe Biden and therefore huge for democracy because he's going to be up against somebody who literally attempted a coup d'etat in the USA. We're going to keep checking on this stuff, but I want to congratulate myself. I want to pat myself on the back. No, everybody that voted uncommitted. I think that will send a message, and I believe that message will be received. I don't know if it'll be responded to, but I'll tell you, it's better than nothing. I think that's more productive than if we had said go Biden in the primaries. The reason why is you and me are not going to be the only people looking at these numbers tonight. Joe Biden, understanding that Michigan is a swing state, going to sit down with his campaign manager. And they're going to ask the same questions I just asked of you. What do they need to beat Trump? As of now, they need the uncommitted votes. They need the Marianne Williamson votes, kinda, but not nearly as bad as they need the uncommitted votes, and they need the Nikki Haley votes. God help us. Marianne Williamson didn't crack 10,000. Did she? It updated while I was looking at that. Let's have a look. Nope. About 7,000. She didn't crack 10,000. Nikki Haley, 100,000 votes. Joe Biden's policy from now until November will reflect the deficit between him and Trump. I think, sadly, Joe Biden believes he can sway over some Trump voters. Hell, maybe he can. It's not my belief, but stranger things have happened. I happen to know that Ashley Babbitt voted for Obama before she died to help a con artist. So, stranger things have happened, is my point. But the the politics of Joe Biden will be reflected in those groups that need to be reached. Sadly, the uncommitted right now are outweighed massively by the Haley votes. So I don't expect Joe Biden to do anything that would guarantee that Nikki Haley will not endorse him. Even worse, I expect Nikki Haley is going to have a place in the next Biden administration. I think she's going to be made something she has no business being, Secretary of State, maybe. Maybe she'll go back to being a diplomat to the UN, whatever. But I expect she is going to be bribed with power for her endorsement. Whereas we know damn well, if Trump takes over, it just becomes Trumpland. Curious to see where that goes. Let's see what you guys have to say. Oh, Saucy Sea Witch, good to see you. Logan Hill, well, she did end her campaign. Still hurts Biden. Yeah. The anti-corporatist, she already dropped out, Jake. Well, let me just say this. She dropped out. She did. And then, on a call with her supporters, announcing that she was dropping out, they begged her not to. And so she revoked her dropping out. I don't want to go too harsh on Marianne Williamson. Her politics are better than anybody else mentioned in that last segment. Let's just say that straight out. We would probably be better off with her as president. Let me say this. I don't think there'd be a U.S.-supported genocide happening right now if Marianne Williamson was president. But by God, she cannot run a campaign. Her actually achieving the office, I don't think was ever even part of her calculations. So, what can you do? That said, I would very much like to see Joe Biden trying to get her on his side. I'm not sure that he will. I can't make any predictions, or rather, I ought not to, because I don't have a sincere, even a gut feeling. I just don't know how Joe Biden's going to react to Marianne Williamson. I guess going off history, I would say he won't, because they tend to ignore the left. Those unconfirmed voters, that's what gets me. If he gets a bunch of people voting on the primary ticket, saying they don't know who they want to vote for, but they know that right now they don't want to vote for him, I wonder if he will associate that with Israel, with Gaza, with the genocide that we are currently allowing. I hope he does. I hope he does. Ooh, what did I just see there? The anti-corporatist, she dropped out again. Mars Falcon, no takesies, backsies. True. Logan Hill, two-time dropout. We can all relate, or just me? No, I get it. Me as well. Kristen Rose, she knew DNC would never allow her to win. I mean, yeah. It's easy to say she campaigned badly, but that's, and I do frequently, but I have to remind myself that's assuming her goal was to become the president of the United States. I don't think it was, frankly. And if she had a messaging campaign, my question is just, what was the message? I think the timing didn't work out for her. But I'll toss this out there. My word, she got her name out there. A lot of folks know who she is. Next time around, she's not an old woman. Next time around, she is going to almost certainly toss her hat in the ring. And when she does, she's going to have a major leg up over a bunch of other candidates. Let's hope. I'll throw this at you. I'd way rather have Williamson than President Williamson than President Newsom. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't hate Newsom with his whole heart. So she's got options. She's made progress, I guess, is my point with this campaign. She has made progress in terms of a political career. Well, Pinkerbell is right, says the anti-corporatist. I missed it. Where did she say? I thought she dropped. Oh, okay, yeah. I thought she dropped out again for real. She did. And further to the point then, she's dropped out and she got 3% of the vote. I was tempted. My pen was drifting. But I think it's a clearer message to say unconfirmed. But as far as I'm concerned, those unconfirmed votes would go to Williamson if the primary, when revisited, if the same folks were there in 4 years. Let's replace Biden with Harris. I think those votes go to Williamson. Good honor. It doesn't have to be a grand slam to be a home run. You know, she made a name for herself this time around. Logan Hill, Williamson may have problems, but she is still on the ballot. Yeah. The anti-corporatists, mail-in votes, haven't even... What? Mail-in votes, haven't even checked. Wait a minute. The anti-corporatists, Marianne Williamson is 71? No. $71? Wow. Let me go ahead and eat my words. She is an old woman. But she's an old woman in tip-top shape. 71. She looks maybe to me 50. Maybe. I have to have another look at those crystals, man. God damn. I mean, I got city miles on me, but she's been apparently sitting in the shop untouched for the last 20 years. How do you look like that at 71? Age will not be an issue with her because she has aged like a fine wine. Clean living, baby, says Speaker Bell. Yeah, absolutely. Pitchforks Dragon, lower 50s. Yeah, I never even looked up her age because I just assumed she was lower 50s. I genuinely like, should I check again? All right, we got a thing to talk about. If you were feeling happy for a moment, don't worry, I'll crush that. But fortunately, I find that knowing what you can do about a problem makes it easier to know about. If you had to say, what's the one thing that you can pretty much guarantee is true about all Republican politicians, what would it be? I think it's probably racism. Bigotry in general, I suppose. Yeah, bigotry. I mean, greed is up there. Certainly. But greed plagues the Democrats as well. It's not necessarily specific to Republicans. But the bigotry, that's really their niche, you know? Republican politicians really are just Klansmen without the courage to show up at anybody's house in the middle of the night. Here's a fella named Tom Woods. I believe it's Tom Woods. You're going to know his name after today. Because he's just an admitted bigot. State senator for Oklahoma stands by beliefs after calling LGBTQ plus Oklahomans filth. First of all, filth is my word, and it's reserved for Republican filth. Days after calling
Time for a new roof. At Right Way Roofing, we know your home is the most...
Days after calling LGBTQ plus Oklahomans filth, a state senator, so his own constituents, A state senator issued a statement on his comments saying he stands by what he said. State Senator Tom Woods is facing growing public outcry and even scrutiny, my God, scrutiny, from those within his own Republican Party. Senate leadership called Woods' comments reprehensible and horrifying. Now, on the one hand, I agree with that. They were reprehensible. They were horrifying. On the other hand, I can almost respect someone just coming out and saying it, you know? It's like when you're dealing with somebody that wears a Confederate flag hat, but they're too scared to say the N-word. It's like you mean the N-word with all your actions, with everything you do with your life. You're walking around town wearing that damn hat, trying to make sure that a little black child is going to ask an awkward question to their parents. What does that hat mean? And have their innocence stolen? But you're too much of a coward just to say what you are, that you're a racist. This guy's at least coming out and saying, I'm a bigot. A bigot I am, says Tom Woods. But the state senator from eastern Oklahoma has not apologized and appears to be doubling down. We are a Republican Senate, supermajority in the House and Senate. I represent a constituency that doesn't want that filth in Oklahoma, Woods said, referring to the LGBTQ plus community during a public event last week. The comments came after an audience member asked Woods about legislation targeting the LGBTQ plus community. The audio was recorded by the good God, I need an Oklahoman to help me with this one. By the Tahlequah Daily Press. We are a religious state, and we are going to fight to keep that filth out of the state of Oklahoma because we are a Christian state. We are a moral state. First of all, I do agree. You are amoral. Second of all, let's talk about this on the other side. See, the problem here, the reason that those fellas in the Confederate flag hats are afraid to just admit they're racist is because it then becomes us or them. What Tom Woods has done here has made it crystal clear. If you are not from his sect of Christianity, none of this Unitarian Universalist nonsense, none of this, average Presbyterian belief. No. If you are not from his sect of Christianity, then the type of Sharia law he brings down on you will not be to your liking, and too bad he thinks he can get away with it. If you dare not be born with the same sexual tendencies as him, or let's admit it, this is a bigot, so it's anything goes. But what he claims to be his sexual preferences, if you don't have those, then he's gonna use the power of the state to get rid of you. Like it's a country in the middle of nowhere in the 1940s, just gonna legislate in a genocide. What he said. So, Oklahomans, it's them or it's you. If you're a decent human being, you cannot allow this to pass. I have his contact information right there in the description. First of all, no matter where you're from, doesn't hurt to call him a cunt. He is one. He ought to know it. Second of all, it doesn't hurt to explain to him that he will never, ever have a national career. He is stuck in Oklahoma. That's your penance, Oklahoma. That's the penance you're going to have to pay. This dude ain't going anywhere. Third and finally, if you're from Oklahoma, tell him he's on your radar now. He has a political career because up until this point, he had been unremarkable enough to go unnoticed. Now he's been noticed by you, and he will never again have your vote. His opponent, from this moment on, will always have your support. Because it is us or it is them. He has made it clear. It's the human beings versus the bigots. I'm on the side of the humans. I hope you are too. Oklahoma, this is a problem that you have allowed to occur. Deal with it in the upcoming election. In the meantime, let's the rest of us make sure this guy knows that he's a miserable human being. Don't say anything threatening. First of all, because it's not real. You're not going to drive down to Oklahoma, and you shouldn't, to whip his ass, even if it'd be incredibly satisfying. No, we're not the clown party. That's the Republican. But that said, you have freedom of speech. He is a see you next Tuesday. He's a horrible human being. He's a disappointment to, well, I guess humanity. You can tell him these things. Feels good. Links in the description. Groove Dragon, one planet, one people, one love, one day, one wicked groovy day, and please be gentle with yourself and kind to others, because that's how we get there. Absolutely, Groove Dragon. My word, Kristen Rose, welcome to the Friends of Doris. Thank you so much. Wireless Mike. You could call him but he has neither the warmth nor the depth. God damn it. It was well done. Logan Hill. It's the Wild West. Oklahoma allows for duels if your reputation is slandered. Here's the thing. Sorry, Mike got me. God dang. Not even that. I mean, I personally love a duel. But in matters of politics, no. The idea, the thing that scares him most and should scare him the most is the fact that a person is going to be out there dedicated to him not having a political career. So if you're going to tell him something real. Because that will genuinely scare him. Tell him his opponent will have a volunteer in every single election. Doesn't matter what state he moves to. He can't run from your eyeballs. The internet exists. His opponent will have volunteers and donors. Tell him and mean it that you will be the grassroots campaign that haunts him for the rest of his miserable life. Wicked community. Every time this guy runs, don't let me forget. Because we're volunteering for his opponent, whoever it is. Not even out of love for the opponent. Just because this guy needs to be made an example of. Let him be the horror story that other bigots tell each other. Let's check these primary results. How we doing? All right, up to 30% of the votes in. Now we're at Biden 221, closer to 222, and Trump at 303,000 votes. Oh boy. That is at a significantly higher amount reported. That's at 37% reported versus 31%. But look at that. Uncommitted, 40,000 votes. Marianne Williamson, 8,000, about 8,500. So adding those up, when you're looking at left-wing support, again, in the primaries, something that traditionally Republicans participate more with. Left-wing support, you're looking at 20 let's see, 60, yeah, 70. You're looking at 270,000 votes, more or less, versus Trump's 303,000. And then the question, which is genuinely going to hurt, is Nikki Haley's 125,000. Are those independents who will vote Republican or Democrat, depending on who's running? If it's Trump and Biden, will they be Republicans still, even though they're voting in the Republican primary? I hope not, but you can be damn sure that Joe Biden is looking at those numbers right now. And if you want to know why he is, if later he is saying something that sounds like right-winger nonsense, because it is right-winger nonsense. If you want to know what happened, why is he doing that? There's your answer. Because he needs those 125,000 votes. Does that make it right? Hell no. No, it does not. But it's what will happen. Be realistic about that. Brace yourselves and understand that this is the joy of having the House and the Senate when we get them. So we're not subject to the whims of a single politician. Oofa. John Bailey, how is San Francisco, my friend? Oh my God, it's great to be back. San Francisco is cool and foggy. Well, all right. Wicked Foxy Dragon, we need to focus on the inactives. I agree. We have to get people out to the polls who don't normally vote, because that is the largest group, frankly. I think a big part of that is going to be convincing them that Democrats can do things for them. You're going to have an easier job. I'm not trying to make everything about non-presidential races, but there are reasons why I think they're important. You're going to have an easier job of doing that with local races. When you're talking to inactive voters, you're going to be talking to a group who needs convincing. Easiest way to convince is say, X law that affects you could change tomorrow. Y law that affects you could change tomorrow. Vote Democrat. Also, your old pal Jake should probably do a couple of streams that are designed to hit people with broader interests. That said, son of a bitch, I'm going to... This is a back padding stream galore. I just rewatched Fight Night because I'm going to do a touch-up. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. The silliest thing in the universe. But by God, the joy it brings me to see two truly very peaceful, very sweet men voicing a couple of roughnecks slugging it out over a political topic and then having it all distracted by far-right nonsense. It's just what I needed. I'm eternally grateful to those cats for doing that. Oh, hey. Let's, speaking of crossing the borders, let's talk about Ukraine. It's been a minute. Slava Ukraini, my friends. I swear to the good Lord, I will not let imperialism continue existing through my lifetime. We should have left it buried in the 20th century. We allowed Russia to resurrect it in the 21st century. And Volodymyr Zelensky and the people of Ukraine are doing their best to stake that vampire once and for all. The U.S. isn't helping because we have a Republican problem. which means we are now weak allies who cannot get the ridiculous amount of firearms we have stockpiled over to Ukraine. But there is hope, because other people around the world, other countries around the world, have organized and have decided, yeah, you know what? I think that's it for imperialism for us, too.
Že viaceré členské štáty NATO a Európskej únie uvažujú, že na bilaterálnej báze pošlú na územie Ukrajiny svojich vojakov. Nemôžem ísť ďalej, nemôžem povedať, na aký účel a čo by tam mali robiť. Žiadny vojak zo Slovenska nepôjde na Ukrajinu. Nebudem teraz robiť ani politické vyhlásenia, ani iné k tomuto záveru. Vidíme obrovské bezpečnostné riziká v bilaterálnych dohodách, ktoré sa pravdepodobne v krátkom čase uzatvoria medzi inými členskými štátmi NATO a Európskej únie, ktorí chcú poslať na Ukrajinu svojich vojakov. Že viaceré členské štáty NATO a Európskej únie uvažujú, že na bilaterálnej báze pošlú na územie Ukrajiny svojich vojakov. Nemôžem ísť ďalej, nemôžem povedať, na aký účel a čo by tam mali robiť. Žiadny vojak zo Slovenska nepôjde na Ukrajinu. Nebudem teraz robiť ani politické vyhlásenia, ani iné k tomuto záveru. Vidíme obrovské bezpečnostné riziká v bilaterálnych dohodách, ktoré sa pravdepodobne v krátkom čase uzatvoria medzi...
Point being, they're now talking about sending actual soldiers. Not just guns, but the people to fire them into the skulls of the Ruskies. I so wish I were the kind of person that could feel bad for the Russian conscripts who are there. I'm not. See, I've seen too many bodies. It's the same way I can't feel bad about a fallen IDF soldier. Just my eyeballs have fallen upon one too many child-sized carcasses. Imperialism is an evil that the world is slow to recognize, because there are imperialists with guns all about. But we have gotten there, bit by bit. Those unconfirmed voters, the reason they didn't vote for Marianne as their protest vote is because there is a concentrated effort to send a message. If you are at a point where you are sending a message to the incumbent Democrat, just imagine what it would take to get those people to ever vote for a Republican ever again. That was a whole lot of dancing around the issue. He didn't say we're sending this number of soldiers to this region. He didn't say we're committing to blah, 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 blah. But he's talking about NATO soldiers being there in person. Good. One thing that the conversation rarely drifts towards when we're talking about Ukraine is what happens if Russia just wins. You know, America is dumb enough to allow Donald Trump to become the president. That becomes an instant dictatorship. Ukraine funding dries up. The Ukrainians are left to only throw stones. The Ukrainians are left to only throw stones at tanks. They're mowed down. Well, they'll probably get a few tanks. I mean, the Russians still haven't figured out to put infantry around them yet. But nonetheless, the Ukrainians are just killed. And then Russia's got it. Filled up the borders, just like Israel is trying to do to Gaza. What happens next? A good question for both of those countries, for our view on both of those countries. How does the world then treat that new entity? Do we buy wheat from Ukraine again, even though it's Russian controlled? Do we allow our companies to purchase from these thieves. What do their neighbors do? What does Poland do? What does Lithuania do? How about the neighbors of the Palestinians? Okay, well, we're talking about Israel. They've already controlled that area and have them surrounded. But the point still being, it will be a formalized situation at that point. Do they then negotiate with Israel as though it's a normal country and not a bunch of murderers who just stole land with rifles and bombs and tanks? I don't think they can. I don't think they should be allowed to. In terms of preparing yourselves for the darkest future, resistance will take an economic form as well. I would say to brace yourselves for talking about economic sanctions with these entities. But I would go a step further. We have the ability now to sanction economically Israel and Russia until they replace their leaders. It's what I would recommend, frankly, every other country on earth do to the United States if we re-elect Trump. Cease doing business with us. Cut us off. It'll hurt like hell here. I mean, waves of people on the street, including me. Do it anyway. We've been entirely too tolerant of monsters. The Tom Woods of the world exist because we have allowed them to. Because we've created a safe environment for them, a prosperous environment for them. Enough. Good. I hope they send NATO troops. I know we cannot start a formal alliance with Ukraine. We can't accept Ukraine into NATO during wartime. That's how a defensive pact works. But we also should not play games. It's obvious what Russia's doing. They haven't had a straight story about why they invaded. Because they invaded for land. Israel does. Hamas was dumb enough to attack civilians. If you ever want a master class in why violence just does not work for the left, set aside the absolute clownish unfeasibility of any plan that involves violence. You want a master class in why it does not work, particularly for the left, is it gives a clear narrative for those who are just itching to do violence against decent folks. That's the great game we play. We are right, but we have stricter rules. We are morally correct, but the rules are stricter with us. You can be angry about it if you want. But then, after you're done being angry, get serious and come up with plans that don't involve attacking a concert full of civilians. Absolutely asinine. That said, people under pressure will only remain under pressure for so long. When there's millions of people involved, inevitably, this stuff happens. Look at the Black Lives Matter rallies. I was in maybe 6. I truly don't know. They were popping up all the time. When I saw one, if I hadn't already prepared, I would just effing show up. Peaceful. Until enough people in an area somewhere stop being peaceful. How are they remembered? Are they remembered as very peaceful protests? Which, again, they overwhelmingly were. No. No. The story the right tells about them, the reality they choose to live in, is that it was a bunch of riots. I wish I had a what you can do for Ukraine. I don't. Other than, for God's sake, don't let treacherous Republicans take power. We need them out of the House. We need them out of the Senate. And we certainly need them not in the White House, because we're going to need to fast track in January of 25 bullets to go to Ukraine to be then rather directly delivered to Russian skulls until they leave. It's going to be boring, our end of things. We're not going to have our action movie moment. We're going to vote. We're going to campaign. We're going to make phone calls. We're going to donate $5. It's all you can do. But fortunately, it's also the most effective thing you can do. Let's talk about this with the Wicked community. John Bailey, I agree with Jake. Thank you. That makes you and me both about half the time. Oh, my word. Pitchforks Dragon with a very kind $5. Thank you. We're talking about a group of terrified migrant children. There are no brave bigots. I agree. Wicked Foxy Dragon. We have to vote blue for the White House, but we really need to focus on turning the Senate and House blue. Absolutely. If I had to pick either Senate and House or White House, every time, and this is despite knowing we have a massive Supreme Court, a couple of Supreme Court picks likely coming up, every time I pick Senate and House, because that is where the laws are written. And we are in bad need of some clarifying laws. The letter hack, new channel idea. All you can do. It's just Jake shaking his head. Usually that's because I'm trying not to say see you next Tuesday again. It's because I feel the fury, but I realize it's silly, and I'm trying to go back to a coherent message. The Anti-Corporatist, I'm open for suggestions on how to keep the Senate, and who the F knows what Fetterman is going to do. Yeah. Logan Hill, we have to push that reality through peaceful means. Yes. Let's see. Logan Hill, it was... Wait a minute. Okay. It was, but it is getting worse in most places. We have to be prepared to hold the line as long as it took to end Vietnam. We have to push that reality through peaceful means. Yes, exactly. The reason I don't frankly worry that anybody in a left-leaning audience is going to go out and do something crazy. But the reason I so often speak about the importance of peaceful means is that, number one, I understand that the anger felt here is genuine. This is not Republicans pretending like trans people are going to jump around every corner and spit acid or whatever it is they've convinced themselves of. The anger is genuine, and it comes from knowledge of real events. And I want to speak to the baser instincts that I know we have. And just acknowledge them, while also acknowledging why we don't give in to them. We don't feel this way by accident. These people are not so infuriating by accident. It is in their designs that the dumbest of us will ruin it for the rest of us. I speak as a member of the dumbest of us. The anti-corporatist. Dude lit himself on fire a couple of days ago. Yeah, that's, I guess, suppose that counts as violence. I mean, that's self-violence. Yeah. I respect what he did. Like, I don't agree with it, but I respect, Jesus Christ, the courage, the conviction. But I would have rather had his vote. If I'm being brutally honest with you. I would have rather had his vote. Wireless Mike. There was another guy who did the same thing in Georgia, and it didn't even make the news. That's why I would have rather had his vote. It's a hell of a lot to gamble on the assumption that a heartless people will suddenly give a damn. Saucy Seawitch. Forcing Fetterman to wear a suit made him lose his powers. Yeah, you're right. The anti-corporatists agreeing with Kristen Rose. I cannot endorse his methods, but I certainly understand the sentiment. Yeah. Donald James X, but why self-immolate yourself? That doesn't change anything, but your vote could have. I'm sure that this person is aware of the monks that did that once upon a time and were able to at least draw international attention to a problem. The miscalculation, in my opinion, here is that the U.S., unless you live here or are Canadian, because I think Canada knows, but unless you're one of those two things, or Mexican, actually, if you're a border country, you're aware of this. It cannot be overstated for those of you across the pond how little the U.S. takes into account the rest of the world's opinions. This is not to say that there's no consequence for that. Like, oh, we're so big that it doesn't even matter what the world thinks. We're just so insulated. The voting population is so insulated from the reality. Like, if for example, if England tomorrow said they're boycotting all U.S. goods, we would feel it in the pocketbook. But the people whose job it is to keep us on the track to self-destruction would convince enough of us that our failing economy had nothing to do with England boycotting us. The mainstream media, I'm not as frequently speaking out against as others, just because I think what you can do about that is watch something else most of the time. But by the way, don't stop watching all mainstream media. But one of their great evils is they like they've got a kill switch. They control information marvelously. The media of this era in the United States will be looked at in the same way we're currently looking within the U.S. at Russian media. People will ask, you're an American, people will ask you for the rest of your life, how did you not know? How did you not know? And it will be it's difficult for me to answer now. How did we not know we had been lied to about Iraq? How did we commit to 20 years of war about that? How didn't you know you were killing little kids in that war constantly? You had your own sons and daughters fighting it. How did you not know? How did you not know you were supporting genocide in Israel? How did you not know? Going to be asked for the rest of our lives. Media is a big part of that answer. Human nature, sadly, is the other. America has figured out exactly what we need to ignore our responsibilities as human beings. You were cooking the earth. How did you not know? The anti-corporatists. Did anyone else notice how the FBI locked down everywhere he had been? They were worried about stuff leaking. Interesting. Environmental Coffee House. I'm too tired to even text on my phone. I'm going to say goodnight, but I'm listening because your commentary is great, Jake. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. You had an absolutely killer interview. That was fantastic. Clip that if you're going to clip anything, because some of those lines was phenomenal. Logan Hill didn't stop anything, but did make it more a point of discussion. Bring the war home never worked. Not to diminish the act, it was despair. What can you do when you feel no one listens? All right, yeah, let's talk about that. Be a bit of a sociopath for a moment, because sometimes that's useful. I once had a surgeon who was amongst the most heartless people I've ever met, and he gave me the most useful health advice I had ever received. It involves a testicular torsion. I'll spare you the details. The point being, great advice. He did so by being so used to seeing people properly suffering that he just didn't give a about me. So be a bit of a sociopath for a moment. And let's discuss this gentleman who set himself on fire. What was the plan? Get a big emotional reaction from people. Draw attention to the subject. Then hopefully they would choose to act decently. Show your commitment. Show your commitment by dying for it. By being lit ablaze. What I would ask is, are there not other emotions you could play to? Could you get a big laugh to draw people's attention to this thing? This genocide. That's a tricky path to walk, but if you try and fail, you can try again tomorrow. Could you scare people? You get a big scare. Okay, talk about forever wars in the Middle East. Talk about Israel creating the conditions that will pull the United States into the next 20-year war. You don't have to make things up, folks. You just choose which of the many horrible things about this you want to address. I don't think this person's plan was fundamentally wrong, except that he chose a method where you only get one shot. Incidentally, do we really need less people that give a damn about this stuff in the world? Be there if only so you can be there for somebody else. Be there so that there is a person who is so committed to this that they're willing to set themselves on fire. But they choose not to because they're too smart to do that. That's what we need. What I would say is, how do you get people to pay attention to it? Use some of their plan. Get a big emotional reaction. Do something, approach it from a way that people who are primed to resist, because we're 6 months into this thing now. So people have got their defenses up. They're prepared to not change their minds based on the arguments they've already heard 1,000 times. Come at it from a different angle. Sweep the leg. Israel's creating the next forever war. The next ISIS will be the survivors of their current attack. Of the, what are we at 30,000 yet? Are we at 35,000? I'm not quite sure. Of the 30 times more civilians they have killed than were killed in the October 7th attack, how many of them had family that will take up arms against the generic West? And if you don't think they'll blame us for these problems, do note, person I'm talking to in this hypothetical, you have allowed 30 times more civilians to get killed than were killed in the October 7th attacks. 30 times more. People that had nothing to do with it, did not plan it, did not execute it, pulled no trigger, dead anyway. You allowed that to happen because you chose not to pay attention to the details, because you got emotional. Now imagine your brother was killed, died in your arms. You don't think they'll attack us? They will. It might not be wrong to either. Do you want a whole generation out there looking for revenge? No? Okay. Relatively simple to end this right now. Hell, Jon Stewart pitched a great idea. Hamas, return the hostages. After an immediate ceasefire. This instant, Israel. You ceasefire, go home. Hamas, send the hostages over. Then, NATO-controlled border between the two. Neither side's crossing. You want to talk about changing that? We can talk and discuss at length when the killing stops. Just some thoughts. Takes more effort to kill somebody than it does to not kill somebody. Shockingly. I had to do the math on that. I called some scientists. Turns out, doing a thing takes more effort than not doing a thing. We are literally putting effort into a situation that is worse for us all. Come at the problem sideways. Wireless mic. Aaron Bushnell, the U.S. airman who burned himself to death to protest the Gaza war, was allegedly raised in a religious compound accused of being part of a mysterious and abusive Christian cult. Very sad. Very sad life. But a heroic man. Kristen Rose, I lived in Cape Cod. There are weird things there with religious groups. It was so odd. Kristen, I would love to talk to you. I'm writing something right now. Actually, Pinkerbell, you too, with your story. I would love to hear about some of this stuff. Maybe a spooky stories stream at some point. Wireless mic. His parents appear to continue to have strong ties to the murky religious sect, which has reportedly been a vocal online supporter of Israel's war on Gaza. Yep. Hey, Logan Hill, let's talk about what you were saying before the stream started. How do you get your state to have an unconfirmed option? In almost all states, it is the same. Contact your representative, have them petition the governor, have them introduce a bill, adding that as an option. As far as well, wait a minute, this is for primaries. What am I talking about? No. I was gonna shrug and say that's all you can do. That's not. You talk to your party. Surely. Come to me in the comments. Now I'm confused. I've confused myself. Well, regardless, you know what? F it. Let's just jump to it because both are pretty damn easy. I don't think you're going to have much resistance to having an unconfirmed option. Talk to your party. Literally Google your state Democrat, your state Republican. Talk to them. Say, I want an unconfirmed option. Make it happen. I don't foresee there being a ton of resistance to that. If anything, the incumbent should want that. because it makes it more likely that they'll win. It's a sad truth, but it is so. That said, I still think it's a good thing to have because it makes it clear it makes it easier for the people to explain why they are voting the way they are voting. And as we just saw in Michigan, you could combine the unconfirmed with everybody else. It wouldn't have changed the outcome. So, Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, says Saucy Sea Witch, is one in Canada that has been pulling strings. There are some in the U.S., and the leader, Bruce Hale, is in Australia. What is the deal with Australia and bizarre churches? All right, I've got their website ready. Logan Hill, DNC doesn't want it. Did they say why? That doesn't make any sense to me. If anything, I would think they would be happy to do that. Anti-corporatist. You don't even have to be in a cult in Texas. The cult will find you. Oi. Oh, Pinkerbell with the knife. The machete. Donald James X. So it was mental illness that caused him to act this out. I would hesitate to call it mental illness. As far as I can tell, this was a man of conviction. It certainly was. But I don't think this was... I can't speculate. I was going to say I don't think this is somebody that was looking to commit suicide and found an excuse in a political cause. It just, given the manner of death, which was as painful as possible, and the political background of people setting themselves on fire, particularly people from a religious background setting themselves on fire. I don't think I would chalk that up to mental illness. Well, gang, I don't know about you, but I think that's a show. We've got a hell of a Left Past 10 coming up tomorrow. I hope to see you there, gang. There's plenty opportunities to see the show. You can check it out on this channel. You can check it out on the Letter Hack, Environmental Coffee House, or Above It All with Andrea Rovinsky, or possibly on Matt Binder's channel. This is WYCD Wicked. That stands for what you can do. My name's Jake.